Good afternoon, Dipesh. A warm welcome to you on behalf of Impact News Network. Very
Hi, Rajni.
briefly, Impact News Network is a media organization headquartered out of Noida, and we are particularly strong in certain domains like government, healthcare, and education. In fact, in last 1 year, we are perhaps the only B2B media who even had Prime Minister Modi in one of our platforms. Now we are enhance the focus also on enterprise IT and BFSI and looking at ways how we synergize between the different verticals. So what we would like in the discussion today is to one focus obviously on update about the solutions and services from Kaspersky in the enterprise fold. Second is with the how the pandemic had shaped up over the last 1.5 years, the security paradigm for enterprises have changed with so many people working from home, different heterogeneous networks and devices coming into the system. So how did you help enterprises and how did you manage that? And we would also like you to take us through the go-to-market strategy that Kaspersky follows specifically for India, and you can take up specific areas from there. So maybe we will start with if you can update on the solutions and offerings that are there in the Kaspersky portfolio for the Indian market.
Okay, so Rajni, thanks for having me. Uh, this is going to be a good platform for us to, showcase the kind of stuff that we are doing for the Indian market as well as the neighboring countries around us. So primarily, if you look at it from the Kaspersky perspective, last 2 years, specifically last starting 2020, the way the pandemic hit everybody. Uh, in some way or the other, if I may say, it was a wake up call for a lot of enterprises, large enterprises, as well as the mid market organizations, because there was a sense of latency among organizations while taking decisions, especially around the cybersecurity piece, because nobody, to a very large extent, considered cybersecurity as a business enabler. Few years ago, there was this trend where people started acknowledging and accepting that tech-enabled businesses or having technology as a foundation to your business is finally become a business enabler. And when you look at investments in technology, you also look at it from a return of investment perspective. If I talk in the business language, but still there was this sense of lethargy, if I can put it, or a sense of delaying the decision when things came around the cybersecurity piece from a technology perspective. But as things would have it, because of the pandemic, the way the working culture changed overnight and changed in a very intense and a forced manner. Organizations had to relook at their pattern of doing business and the kind of tech that they had uh, applied and created in their ecosystem. And it was like I said, it was a wake up call for these organizations to suddenly realize that everything that they had is now unsecure. So security became a prime concern, and we could see the change in speed of adaptability for cybersecurity technology and solutions, which is where I think was the biggest paradigm shift, if I can use the cliched word. But today, I think we've come to a point where organizations no longer consider cybersecurity as an afterthought. Now, as projects are being discussed, new technologies are being imbibed, or the new trend that we've seen across where a lot of technology infrastructure is moving to the cloud. It's a very welcome situation for cybersecurity organizations today, because today large enterprises or even medium organizations today want to discuss cybersecurity at the time of inception of these new decisions that they want to make. So that not only makes the entire infrastructure secure and safe, but they also are able to justify the kind of security that they have when they are in the middle of businesses. So cybersecurity finally, like I said, has become a part of the business enabling decisions, which has been very, very welcome. Uh, from what Kaspersky is doing today for the South Asia market, specifically India, contributing to more than 70% of the overall revenues for South Asia, the biggest change is that today we, as Kaspersky, have come to a level where we are getting into conversations with our customers around the entire solution stack. So we are no longer being seen uh, as an endpoint provider or a point product company. So if I talk from a portfolio perspective, our portfolio is possibly the largest security portfolio that an organization can offer. So if I start from the very basics, if we go down to ABC, we start with endpoint, obviously. Then we are getting into advanced cyber protection with technologies like sandboxing, EDR. Then we are getting into further predictive technologies like threat intelligence. In fact, if you refer third-party reports like the Forresters, Gartners, and the IDGs of the world, the threat intelligence offering of Kaspersky is being rated among the top 3 globally. We are talking about advanced protection methodologies like cyber defense assessment, red teaming, blue teaming, the new emerging concepts of purple teaming, which is coming up. We have an entire team that takes care of that. We are talking about compromise assessments, breach assessments. We are talking about incident response services. This is only from the cyber security side. We are talking about MDR, that is managed detection and response. Then we are talking about OT security. In fact, very, very, very glad and very, very excited to share that the kind of portfolio that Kaspersky has on OT security today, we are actually one of the very, very few organizations globally that have an entire stack of protection on the OT security side. So when we are talking about the OT security, we are again talking endpoint, network. We are talking about predictive technologies like threat intelligence on the OT network. We have a seamless integration between OT and IT because we come from the IT background, as well as we've done the entire product developments organically within Kaspersky for the OT security piece. Taking 2 steps ahead, we are already in preliminary discussion stages with a couple of organizations where we are talking protection on Internet of Things, where we are talking about automation and things around it, and how do we protect the Internet of Things kind of infrastructure, which is going to be the next generation, where people are talking about AI and ML. We are talking about protection of cybersecurity on the Internet of Things portfolios. And then something off late, which has taken a lot of center stage, huge discussions happening around, is the anti-drone technology that Kaspersky is offering. So we are already at, I would say, mature level of discussions with a lot of government agencies, with a lot of large national integrators, national system integrators, and global system integrators, where our solutions around anti-drone technology and surveillance are being the front stage of discussion. So a huge, huge portfolio, starting right from something sitting inside the home on an endpoint, going right up to things in the cloud, and maybe even protecting attacks from drones today. So huge change in the way Kaspersky has approached the market and the way the market has accepted us as a cyber solutions provider.
Thanks. So I'll take up 2 areas from here specifically before I come to the next question. One is the OT security part you mentioned. What we have seen in India, especially amongst the manufacturing organizations, in many cases, the overall IoT deployment has not worked to the extent planned, because everyone is an expert in IT. OT is where all the problems are, and so doing the IT and OT, as you mentioned, Kaspersky, on the same plane, what are the challenges for, and how much have you been able to help the enterprises overcome some of those challenges? What has been your experience there?
Okay, interesting question. In fact, if you ask me for the challenge, the most fundamental challenge and also the most difficult one is the fact that the investments in the IT security space have happened, especially in the last 5 to 7 years, and also the IT infrastructure, be it your network, your endpoints, your overall connectivity, your bandwidth, everything has improved and grown over the last 5 to 7 years. However, if you look at it from the OT infrastructure perspective, you will realize that the OT infrastructure is still the legacy infrastructure which was deployed 20 years ago. I'm working with organizations where infrastructure is as old as 35 to 40 years back and has been super functional, absolutely efficient, and doing what it is supposed to do. But obviously, 30 years, 40 years, 20 years ago, cybersecurity was not a concern, was not even a point of discussion. In fact, it was not even an afterthought, if you ask me. Today, we have come to a point where we've moved away and ahead of the core IT infrastructure security and now looking at OT security. So getting the OT security, the OT platform, and the legacy OT technology to first at a level which is acceptable by the OT security standards today itself is a huge challenge. And moving ahead from there, getting the OT security to synchronize with the IT security so that the enterprise has a, a seamless and a surface wide visibility of the threat landscape has been the biggest challenge for organizations to adapt, as well as the OEMs to live up to those expectations. Fortunately for us at Kaspersky, since we are an organically grown organization with a whole lot of product portfolios which have been developed in-house at home by our own research analysts, this getting the OT security platform and the IT security platform to marry each other is not difficult. I would say comparatively not difficult. So I think that is where we have tasted good success as compared to a lot of other organizations, because if you look at the overall offerings in the market today, there are organizations which are good at IT security, there are organizations which are good at OT security, but hardly anyone which has an entire portfolio which synchronizes with each other. And the ones that have such portfolios have come through acquisitions and not through organic growth. So that there is a void when it comes to integration between IT and OT. That's been the biggest plus point for Kaspersky. And wherever customers have gone through this challenge, and when we've started conversations with these customers, I think we've been really accepted with open arms, and our conversations are going through at a very mature discussions level. So next year, 2022, if I can put it that way, is going to be a year where we will see a lot of large transactions around OT security coming through for Kaspersky. So I think it's 2022 is something to look forward for Kaspersky, because a lot of new technologies which are on the radar will see the light of the day of moving into proper businesses.
Sure. Now, coming to the main part of the business, which you mentioned, obviously around the threat perception. Now we look back at the last 1.5 years during the pandemic. So, the way you do the vulnerability assessment, when many of these enterprises were assessed pre-pandemic times, if I may say, the vulnerability assessment levels were at a certain point or at a certain level. Now, once the in this scenario, a work from anywhere kind of scenario, we know so many devices, so many networks are coming into the system. There are this possibility of the security getting compromised and the vulnerability level getting increased. So, how did your threat perception and those solutions handle the situation, especially when many of these enterprises also migrated to cloud at the same time to operate? So, how did you manage?
Uh, so, like I said, our approach in the last, I would say, 24 months, even before we hit the pandemic scenario, I think there was a fundamental change in approach the way Kaspersky was approaching the South Asian market. Uh, we consciously had made a decision that we don't want to get into product selling or point product selling all the time. So the approach was to understand the customer and the requirement better rather than just catering to his product demands. So when I say if someone is trying to upgrade his endpoint, the natural progression in the market is okay. You've been using X level of AV or next generation AV or whatever XYZ that you have. Now the next movement is to EDR, then from EDR to a sandbox, maybe a threat intelligence and things like that. Our approach was very different, and that has given us huge dividends in the form of customer wins, partner engagements, and brand acceptability in the market. What we've done is, instead of, obviously we get into the product discussion, but one of the key things that we do is to understand why the customer wants to use a particular product that he's asking for. If someone walks up to me and Dipesh, do you have, I'm upgrading my existing endpoints, can you give me 5,000 EDRs? So my question to him, my answer to him would be yes, I can, but at the same time, why do you want an EDR? Yeah, it's because it is an advanced form of protection. If you do the due diligence and spend the right time with the customer, understanding his pain points, and if you make the customer understand that maybe at this point, based on the cyber maturity that you as a customer have, maybe EDR is not the right product. You should first think about encryption, because that's how you protect your data in case if something goes out, or if in a bad situation, if there has been a breach or if there has been a data exfiltration, maybe an encrypted form of data, if gets exfiltrated, will be of no use to the hacker. So that is something which we are trying to strike conversations with the customer, which has been a differentiator for us. The channel community has liked this approach a lot because they've been, they have been accustomed and forced by the entire OEM fraternity to, go out and sell products, sell this, sell this, sell this. The way we are talking to our channel is to first get to the root cause of the problem and suggest something ideally better and an alternate to the customer. So if you want to give him an EDR, obviously give him an EDR, but you can also suggest that, look, while you're doing EDR, you should look at these three parameters, which can be a value addition to the solution that you're looking for. So getting into this solution selling mode has helped us tremendously because, one, we get better attention from the customer as well as from the channel. Second, the customer as well as the channel community feels confident that they are talking to a vendor who knows the business and is not here only to sell a product and move away. That has helped us the most, and that kind of an approach has given us good wins in the market and has improved our brand credibility and acceptance.
Okay, so I just put a question which is a corollary to this. You mentioned the solution selling approach, which the channel is going to the customer. Now, let's look at from the customer side. How has the nature of the conversation with the CISO in most cases changed, especially again this last 24 months?
Huge. So we were at a junction in cybersecurity technology where everything was being looked at, the network protection, the SOC protection, monitoring, detection methodologies and things like that. But because of the pandemic and the work from home culture, the entire focus and conversation is back to the endpoint and completely around how do you strengthen and protect the end user who is sitting somewhere, given the challenges of maybe internet connectivity, maybe the kind of security based on a home setup. So the biggest change that has happened is the entire attention is back to the endpoint. So maybe 5 years ago, people were talking endpoint, and then last 2-3 years, the discussion was mainly around network protection and other advanced technologies. But with pandemic, everything is back on the endpoint again. So how do you protect the endpoint? What features need to enable? Patch management has been adhered by the customer in a very, very religious way to ensure that the endpoints are protected, because there is no perimeter today. Everybody is everywhere, and you really don't know where the impact will be if there happens to be a loose security end and something gets into the system. So the biggest change that I see is the entire focus on the endpoint. How the CISOs have been adapting to it is, it's like going back to the drawing board again and rethinking the entire cybersecurity approach from the endpoint perspective outwards. So first it was coming from the external network or the external world into the endpoint, where the endpoint was being considered as the last point. Now the discussions are starting from the endpoint and moving into the organization. So the entire way cyber security is being thought and the implementation patterns have changed. Uh, Fortunately for us, we fall in the right category and the right league of requirements that the customers are looking at, and the kind of features that we are able to enable on our endpoints today are helping the CISOs, I would say, decide on you know how better a particular tool can be used at the same time with reduced investments for themselves. So that's the difference that I see today uh, from what the pandemic has forced people to do.
Okay. So now you talk about these enterprises customers. So I would like to look at it vertically, where you are seeing the maximum traction. Maybe vertical wise, which will be the top three, four verticals from which maximum customers are coming from. That is one. And second is, if you can indicate a bit of the use cases which are prevalent within these verticals.
Oh, so different. The trend is it's quite a, how do I say, the surface of the customer is very large today. Every vertical has a different level of cyber maturity, and the demands and the expectations from a cybersecurity provider for the customer is very different. So if I classify, I would say the government vertical today has become one of the most dominant and prominent uh, markets, if I can use that word, for the cybersecurity providers. Their use cases are also equally challenging and advanced. And the kind of cyber threats that they see today are also quite serious. So the kind of market that a government vertical has is different from the kind of market a BFSI vertical has. Obviously, traditionally, BFSI has uh, been the most extensive spend master on cyber security, because the product itself is money. Any damage happening from a cyber threat perspective on a BFSI vertical directly multiplies into the amount of money which is lost. So BFSI continues to spend, but again, like I said, the use cases are different. And the third uh, trend which we have seen go up drastically is the manufacturing vertical. So manufacturing, I think from whatever experience that I have in the last 7-8 years that I've been working with the in the cyber world, uh, manufacturing was not as heavy in spending on the cyber space the way they are today. So in fact, manufacturing is also looking at OT security in a large way. A lot of automobile companies, a lot of typical government organizations, large government brands, and people in heavy machinery manufacturing as well are looking at the OT security side along with the IT security, and that is where they are also looking at the OT IT convergence. The BFSI vertical continues to invest heavily in the predictive technologies like threat intelligence, cyber assessments, red teaming, blue teaming. What would be the next steps if at all a breach happens? So incident response retainers and these kind of activities is where the BFSI continues to spend. SOC monitoring, people enablement, another new segment where we've seen BFSI invest, where they are consciously investing on people to upgrade their cyber skills and get certified on advanced technologies. And if you look at the government demands and requirements are absolutely different. So their demands are something as simple from upgrading their existing endpoints to how do you protect the work from home environment, what are the rules and policies that should be looked at, how do you improve the monitoring perspective, how an MDR kind of a solution can make difference for them, what would be the roadmap planning for the next 2 to 3 years. So I've been working closely with a handful of government agencies today where we are actually trying to structure their security enablement roadmap for the next 2 to 3 years and creating a phased wise approach as how they should be progressing and what would be the kind of investments in terms of people and technologies that they should be doing to keep them ahead. If I can really project it that way, that how do you be ahead of the cyber curve and try and be conscious enough that if there is anything which is slightly fishy can be picked up quickly and you can verify whether it's a potential threat or it's just a normal alert. So these are the trends which we are seeing.
Just let me interrupt because when you are in the government, it's a very vast and very diverse kind of. So if you can, obviously, whatever are referenceable, or even if it's not referenceable, just indicate what sort of government functions or applications are specifically looking at this assessment kind of the options.
uh, I will try to be as generic as I can. Since it's a sensitive vertical we are talking about. Um, a lot of so government today has a lot of information and data of citizens which they carry. So how, in terms of, if I can make it as simple as the property departments which have the entire laundry list of the property details that you carry, how many family members do you have. Then there has been, last 3-4 years ago, there was a wave of digitization of this entire vertical. Now, since they are sitting on so much authenticated absolute citizen data, what could be the possible mechanisms that can become a risk for this data? So what are the people, processes, technologies, trends that they should look at to protect this kind of data, which is fundamental. Protecting a citizen's data is something which is of prime importance to the government. Second, there is a lot of nation and statewide threat actors that act across all geographies, given the scenarios that in the world that we are today. So that also is something of concern, that how and what are the methodologies being done. In fact, the government departments have extensively invested with advanced cyber trainings with us, so that they can empower, educate, teach the team of government officials who are into these kind of activities of monitoring cyber situations. So these kind of stuff where protection and enablement is important. Government is also heavily investing in predictive technologies, something as fundamental as threat intelligence, because that's a common word, but a lot of other predictive technologies which I would not want to name, but can actually give you an indication about things that could prospectively go wrong in the next maybe month or so, or depending upon the patterns and logs that we see into the system. So government heavily investing on people enablement, predictive technologies, data protection, protecting the information that of the citizens which they are carrying in every possible way.
Okay, thank you. Now, the earlier you mentioned about your channel network, so I wanted to elaborate a little more on your overall go-to-market strategy, especially keeping in mind what you mentioned. There are different verticals who are on different levels of cyber maturity, especially on the security front, and so your go-to-market for the different verticals have to be different also. So, what's the in terms of the GTM strategy that you follow, and what are the initiatives?
So, um, so what we've done is we've bifurcated our technologies in different buckets. So the buckets could be as simple as basic technology and advanced technology. There could be different ways of bucketing technologies like services and products. There are different. Then another bucket which we create is predictive technology and reactive technology. Then there are classifications which we do like OT security and IT security. Then we have next generation cyber technologies like anti-drone protection, cyber security for Internet of Things, and automation. So if you take a bird's eye view of the Indian market today, all these technologies are being absorbed by the Indian market at different levels with different verticals. Now, as a team of people, you can only, your reach will be only as much. So like we were very um, confident and clear on the approach that we will go the channel way only. We will do enablement of the channel and use the channel as our extended teams to represent us in front of the customers and reach out to the market. So our channel strategy is actually bucketed around these kind of technologies, where we we actually design our GTM based on the kind of channel which we are working, and we choose the channel that we work that is aligned to that particular vertical. So what I mean to say, if I can make it more simple, um, say say a system integrator who's a small system integrator, his focus would never be to work with a large multi-million opportunity with the government which is being driven from the north. So there's no point investing that kind of training or forcing the training onto a partner and getting him certified that look, I have a certified partner for this technology. It will not be meaningful neither to the partner nor to us as the solutions provider. So we pick up partners, for example, who are focused with the government vertical, spend time with them, educate them, understand what is the business and what is their aspiration as a partner to grow as an organization in that vertical, and align our solutions to their business aspirations, which is where we see the synergy with them, and the acceptance has been amazing. So immediately once the partner or the channel realizes that okay, this is the way I want to grow in, for example, a government vertical, and Kaspersky product line, solutions, services, or whatever we have to offer falls in sync with my business aspirations, there is an immediate marriage between us. Then the partner is willing to spend time with us, invest with his people, train, spend money with us on training, get people certified on our products, and then do the joint market approach to the customer. So today we are in a situation where we go together with the partner and we do the conversations with the customer when we are talking about advanced technologies. Similar is the solution with BFSI. BFSI, there is a focused channel community that works specifically on the cyber security lines of business, protecting the BFSI customers only. So our strategy with them will be very, very different and much aligned in that direction of business. Same, if you look at the manufacturing vertical, there are specific partners who love this vertical and spend their time and investments, and their approach is completely manufacturing driven. So when we talk to them, obviously the OT security is a different level of excitement for them, because that is where the new business is, and that's where our engagement with them gets better. So the GTM is planned as per the channel strategy that we have, and we are very, very choosy uh, with the kind of alignment that we do with those channels, so that this also reduces conflict of channel in the market. So we don't want 5 channel partners fighting for the same opportunity. I would rather have 5 channel partners get 5 different opportunities, and they also enjoy the exclusivity they get with us, and we also get the breadth of business that we are looking at. So this is how we've planned our strategy, and it's working amazingly well for us.
Great. The final question, what you would very specifically, you mentioned one of the focus areas in 2022, especially, will be on the OT security side. You mentioned. You also talked about another LOB on the anti-drone and the surveillance side. So these two and otherwise, if we look at the next few quarters, maybe 3, 4 quarters, what will be the focus areas, both from products, features, or from even vertical wise? What will be the key trust areas from Kaspersky?
So today we have come at a level. So Kaspersky South Asia today is at a level that we are at par with any of the top 5 competing brands in the IT security space, and this could be across all the technologies. It could be advanced endpoints, it could be EDR solutions, sandbox, hybrid cloud solutions, or for that matter, even the MDR kind of offerings. So that market is now almost like run rate business for us. Now the focus, actually starting November, December onwards, when we get into the next year planning and the next year's GTM for 2022, is complete focus on next gen technology for cybersecurity. So, like I said, IT is run rate. Now is the time where you will actually see the new generation on OT security. OT security still being not the best understood technology. There is a lot of scope to create awareness and maturity around this. Further, we are investing a lot on anti-drone. There is already a lot of buzz around it and a lot of conversations in progress. So obviously 2022 will see a lot of results and a lot of announcements on business coming in from that side. Again, that is something which is very, very niche to Kaspersky, and I really don't see any major competing brand in the market for the anti-drone technology. We are extensively working on Internet of Things. So cybersecurity, how do you protect the Internet of Things ecosystem which you create, and how you can, actually look at more than 90%, 95% kind of assurance on the cybersecurity piece when you're on the IoT of things. And I'm saying Internet of Things, not industrial cybersecurity. Further, huge focus on the services side, because selling a product is not what we want to do. It's because a product can do only as much. There should be something beyond that we should be able to bring value to the customer after selling the product as well. So there is a huge focus on the services portfolio of Kaspersky, where we are doing a lot of red teaming, blue teaming, cyber assessments is a mainstream portfolio for us. Incident response has become a mainstream portfolio for us. We've already tasted a lot of success this year, and the way the books are looking and the kind of opportunities we are working on next year, I think this is going to be a major contributor. The other very important thing which we are doing is working on the training aspects. So we've created customized training content for the Indian customer, for the Indian market, if I can put it that way. And very soon you will see announcements coming from Kaspersky, where we are aligning with some top organizations in India that will focus only on training and enablement for advanced training. So when I'm talking about enablement, I'm talking about advanced cyber trainings like compromise assessments. How do you do a breach assessment? How do you do an incident response? If you are in the SOC side of monitoring, how do you manage a SOC? How do you follow the patterns and detections, and how do you read the logs and make the best intelligence out of it? So those are things which are going to be the next wave for 2022, and confidently I can tell you, because we've already started working on it. In the next 2-3 months it will be at a very, very decisive stage. So 2022 is going to be all about next generation cyber technology. So basic cyber technology, advanced cyber technology, and next gen. So while people are at advanced right now, we have already moved to the next gen. That's what we are doing. Here you go on the chat.
Sure, it's there. Thanks a lot, and greatly appreciate you taking out your time today
Thank
for
you,
this.
Rick.
Thank you.